I tell you what, I'd stop for a moment to go find something that I had stashed away, and it's time to go live. Hi, everybody. It's Jason with Green Country Agroforestry here. It's Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, so it's time for yet another live stream. I hope everybody's doing okay out there. Find someplace to put this where it won't fall over. So I got a lot of stuff to get to. I want to talk to you about a couple different mistakes that I've made, some that you know about, some that you'll find out about tonight, because I figure sharing our mistakes is a great way to maybe help other people avoid making them, and that would be educational. Of course, you guys know what wisdom is. That's the quality that you have whenever you recognize when you're making the same mistake all over again. Hello, everyone. Oklahoma Chicken Cam said, I was married twice. Lesson learned. You know, my first marriage, the lesson that I learned was I was not ready to be married, which is ironic. I was 27 years old getting married for the first time, and you'd think that at that age you would be, but I was not the kind of person that could be married properly at the time, and neither was my wife, my first wife at the time. But we fortunately remained friends and have a child together, so it all worked out well. Vicky, yes, the watercress arrived. Wow, it got big. It's stuffed into the pool on the north, the 50-gallon pool on the north side of the house, where it has some Azolla, duckweed, sphagnum moss, filamentous algae, and goldfish for company. Oh, and we have some amphibians that mated over there, and I see the little eggs all through there. So we're gonna have little amphibians. I don't know whether it's going to be one of the 3 or 4 different varieties of toad that we've got running around here that's going to come out of that pool, or if it's going to be frogs, or what it's going to be. But we're going to have some amphibians, and that's going to be awesome. We have 2 pools now that are working, and they're cranking out the amphibians for the garden, which is something that we haven't had so far, and hopefully it's going to make a big impact when it comes time to keep the grasshoppers and stuff like that under control. The ducks will take care of them whenever they get into the yard where the ducks are patrolling, but hopefully we'll have enough little amphibians running around eating ants, eating grasshoppers, munching on some of those other things, maybe flea beetles. I don't know if they'll eat the flea beetles or not. John saying frog gig and frog legs. I don't know about that. Most of these are toads. I don't know if I want to eat the toads. So yeah, there was quite a bit of it. And I noticed it's gotten pretty large. I didn't cut it back, but I might wind up doing it just to have it less shocked. But right now I've got it in the shallow end of that pool. It's kind of a kidney shape with one shallow end, one deep end. And the place where I've got the climb out area for the frogs is over there on the shallow end, of course, with a little fountain going. And now it's got the watercress in there, right there in that shallow spot, which hopefully that gives the little tadpoles a place to hide whenever they hatch out. They'll like to do a lot of filter feeding early on, and the goldfish. I don't want the goldfish eating all the tadpoles. All right, so guys, one of the first things I want to tell you about before I get too far is I want to tell you about the stuff in this jar here that I shook up a little while ago. Back during the winter, I was talking about conducting an experiment this spring, which involves these little jars here that I got from Berlin Packaging. I see Amy's joined us. Hello, Amy. And Mary is with us. Hello, Mary. All right, so I got a bunch of these tin jars, little jars, and these I tried out a couple of different applicator tops. One with a little brush, the kind that we used to apply rubber cement with, and I think sometimes your pruning paint and stuff like that comes in a similar container. I mean, this is really the same kind of container. And then I tried it with the dauber like this, and I think the dauber wound up being a better applicator for what I have in mind. So we're going to use the dauber. And you notice I've got 3 of these jars here, and quite a bit of this stuff that I've mixed up. And the stuff that I've mixed up is a blend of cedar oil, wood vinegar, honey, as an emulsifier. Castile soap also as an emulsifier. And the idea is you use the dauber applicator. I'm just going to put some in here. You use the dauber applicator and you apply this close to the base of your squashes. It has a very, very potent aroma, which is repulsive to vine borer moths. And so the vine borer moth will be repulsed away from the squash that you don't want it laying its eggs on. And instead, the vine borer moth will go out and he'll find the wild cucurbits and take care of curtailing their numbers so they don't take over the world, which is what the vine borer moth is for. It's not actually supposed to be a pest to bedevil us. It's supposed to keep wild cucurbits from going out of control and smothering everything under creation. So they have a purpose, and I don't really want to kill them. I just don't want them preying on the squash that I want to eat. So mixing up this stuff here, ideally, it should cause the vine borer to go somewhere else and lay its eggs. Instead of laying its eggs, I think I can put a little bit more in the jar here. Yeah, I can put a little bit more in there. Instead of laying its eggs on our squash. And so I'm preparing 3 jars here. I already have 1 jar that I prepared for myself very, very early on. And if you guys haven't guessed, yes, these 3 jars are intended for you guys. And I'm not selling them. I will send them out to the first 3 people that say that they would like to participate in this experiment and find out if this particular formulation that I came up with will successfully deter the vine borer moth and save your squash. So if you're interested in participating in that experiment, just leave a comment below or something like that, and I'll get a hold of you and ship one of these little jars to you, and you can try it out and see if it actually works. Now, the other thing we're going to do is try this out on our corn, which I'll talk more about in just a moment here. We're going to try it out on the corn and see if that's going to help with the corn earworm, which we'll get up there and try to munch on the top, because that one's a moth too. And I figure, well, moths and cedar oil already not going together very well, right? We add the wood vinegar, which causes all kinds of insects to turn around and run away because they smell it and they think, oh no, it's a forest fire, run. And I've traced this around insects and have the insects be unable to escape from the boundary that I've traced around them. So far we've got I've got 3 of these. The brush is in the can, of course. The dauber's in the can, and all you have to do is whenever you plant or whenever you go to treat your squash, maybe about once a week, twice a week, depends upon whether or not you got lots of rain or not, right? Just run that around the base of your squash, right there where 3 or 4 inches, where you would ordinarily like try to cover it up with saran wrap or something, right? All the different things that we try to protect it. And put that wood vinegar around there, and hopefully it works and it keeps the vine borers off of our vines, and it won't kill anything, so it's not going to damage any of the critters that we want to come by and pollinate the blooms. So there we go. You might even try doing something like after the fruit sets, you may put a little bit on the part of the vine that connects to the fruit. That way, whenever you've got things like leaf foot bugs or squash bugs coming along trying to bite on your fruit and chew on your fruit, it'll cause them to turn and run away too. So I've got, let's see, Amy at Craze Family Gardens. Yeah, Amy, you've got your email. I think I've already communicated with email before, but I'll look for your email on your page. I know where to find you. Carolyn Smith, I already have your email, so I'll get one of these, and I have your address too already. I got it in my records. We'll go ahead and ship one of these out to you. Anybody else would like to try? Actually, I kind of want to send this last one to someone else in particular. I don't know if he's going to show up in chat tonight or not, but if David doesn't call for this one or Scott doesn't call for this one, actually, I think I want to send this one to Scott down there in Texas, because he's got less room to grow in than David does. All right. So here we go. I suspect I'll probably wind up saying this one to Scott Head down in Texas. All right. So I have at least two good solid candidates. Carolyn Smith, that's Florida, and Amy, that's also here in Oklahoma. Yippee! All right, so Carolyn says she's not growing the squash, but she is growing the corn, so you can apply it near the tassels of the top, hopefully to prevent infestation of earworm. Mineral oil is usually usually what people use for earworm on corn, but maybe putting this on and keeping them from even coming in the first place will be a way to do it. And yeah, John says destroys. The vinegar is good for ants because it destroys scent markers. This not only interferes with the ability to smell, but some of it's a little bit toxic in the case of the cedar oil if they actually come into contact with it. But mostly it's going to be effective at making them turn around and go away because they don't want to come into contact with it. All righty. So I mentioned corn, and corn is actually one of the first things I want to talk about as far as errors go. I was looking at our corn patch, which I started planting on April the 15th. April 15th is whenever I start planting on April 15th because usually it's late enough that frost isn't going to kill everything and I can direct sow corn. I might be able to get away with it a little bit earlier, but I planted, and our first block, the one that's closest to the house, it came up really fast. Boom. Not a problem. Block number 2 and block number 3, all planted on the same day. The germination was a little bit slower to get started, and some didn't come up. And I was looking at it like, okay, what's going on here? Do I have bad seed? Oh no, I just sold a bunch of seeds. Is my seed bad? I mean, this is the first time thing is like I've been promising people the germination rate is really good on this stuff. It's great germination rate. You don't really have to thin it all that much. Just put one, boom, 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 8 to 12 inches apart. You're good to go. And if I've got bad germination, then oh no, this is horrible. And then I realized something, and I realized that a couple of days later, I was like, I'm pacing back and forth, and it's got to be something. It's got to be something. It can't be that because that first block, everything germinated really good, and it's all the same seed. So it has to be something else. What in the world is it? What is it? And this is a day that, okay. So early in the spring, our mornings are overcast quite often, right? It doesn't get really bright until later on in the day because we're still fighting off the last vestiges of winter. But this particular day, it wasn't overcast and the sun was coming up, and I was out there with feeding the ducks and watering the ducks. And usually I try to get out there before it gets too bright out anyway. But today this particular day I was a little bit slower getting out there because I had an injury and it kept me sleeping in late. But I got out there and I noticed how the sun was hitting the duck shed, which we built sort of late in the year last year during the late spring, summertime. In other words, we'd already had our corn planted; it had already come up. So we built that shed after our corn had already germinated. And I looked and I saw how the sun was coming up early in the spring, the way it is sort of more to the north. And the way it comes up, it clips that shed and partially shades block number 2 and completely shades block number 3. And I looked over there at the germination rate and went, oh, okay, I see what happened. That shade early on, because the sun is so far to the north early on in the spring, because I had put the shed in, it now is shading those 2 blocks, and I'm not going to be able to grow corn in those 2 blocks on my first planting. And this is the error that I realized I made. And it's too late now. I've already built the shed. I can move the shed, and I will eventually. We have plans on demolishing the garage and carport eventually, and that gives us a concrete pad. That'll be a great place to set up a space for the shed for the ducks to be in. I'll probably put a wood shed with solar panels on it over there as well. So that's all future stuff. But for right now, where I have that shed located, it's shading out those 2 blocks, at least early in the spring. I think by summer, when the sun moves a little bit further to the south, it's going to be a nice clean arc, and we'll have enough soil temperature in any case that the plants will be able to get up and get growing. So that's the first of the mistakes that I've I'm receiving my feedback on and going, oh, okay. Maybe I should have thought about that before I erected the shed. So there's one for you. Whenever you're adding outbuildings or adding new stuff onto your existing systems, try to take into account how it's going to affect the shade, because you may be relying upon an area to get lots of light, and whenever you block it, you can't do as much as with it as you thought, or you have to change what you do. And what I'll wind up doing next year is starting out with peas and peas alone in those 2 blocks, because peas will grow just fine there during that cooler period. And I can extend my season and have a little bit more fresh green peas, and that will be great because I don't have that many places where I'm growing them these days, and I do like them. So I think we will just grow some peas in that spot and keep on partying on. All right, yeah. Mary said everything must go eventually. Yeah, one day this house too. Hopefully, I mean, if we live long enough, if we do well enough, eventually, what we'd love to do is set up a greenhouse over there where Margaret's house is, Mary's mother's house, where her house is currently. We'd like to put a big greenhouse there. Go ahead and put in a bathroom and an office area in there. So that's an area that people can come in and sort of visit the nursery area here, and we'll be more showcasing things at this location, and perhaps by then we'll have another site that has a little bit more space where we grow everything. So right now we're growing everything here, and because we're growing everything here, we don't have as nice and showy a look as we could have. If we were just focusing on just making it look nice, then I'd be mixing up the flowers and having different things here and there. But as it is, in order to make sure I don't mix up different types of flowers, I have to plant one type and then another type and another type. So it does have more of a row garden, factory farm sort of look to it that is not pleasant whenever the flowers aren't blooming. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to change it up so that this place is more of a showcase location, and people can look at, well, what's this going to look like eventually if I decide I'm gonna get some of these things and put them in my yard. I'm going to get 1 or 2 of these pecan trees. They're going to be big, nice and shady things. I can hang the tire swing from them, or we can build tree forts for the grandkids and then one of these, that sort of thing. Those are awesome for that. What else do I want? Well, maybe some mulberries, pear trees, cherry trees, plum trees, lots and lots of red bud trees. Those are fun because they draw in the pollinators. Bright pink flowers early on. One of the new ones that we discovered that we had, I didn't realize that we had them because it was starting out on a neighbor's property, and it sort of migrated over. It climbed under the fence and popped up on our side too. We found flowering quince, which is a member of the rose family. It can grow in the shade and produces lots and lots of vitamin C in the form of little tiny tart fruits that it produces. They're not sweet. They're a vitamin C supplement. I mean, a very serious vitamin C supplement. So for people living in more temperate climates, you're wondering, okay, we have winter coming along, and we have our ordinary medicinal garden that we have to take care of regular complaints. But how do we boost our vitamin C? I mean, short of pine needle tea will get you through, I suppose. But wouldn't you like to have something other than pine needle tea? And, well, okay, quince is one of those things. It's similar to rose hips, will give you lots and lots of vitamin C, which is great for fighting off infections in the middle of the winter. Accelerating healing, all sorts of other fun stuff. Keeping your teeth from growing loose and falling out. Nobody wants that happening. I don't want that to ever be one of the mistakes that I talk about, is how I lost my teeth because I didn't stay up on my vitamin C. Oh. So let me go and find somebody else's mistake to talk about for a moment, and then I'll share another one. All right. I can do quite a bit of this, actually. All right, we already talked about that one. Sometimes it's not the idea of getting married. It's just that you're not the right person to be married yet, or the person that you were trying to get married to wasn't the right person at the right moment either. Don't give up on it. All right. Let's see. This is not a mistake. This is just what she's up to. Developing infrastructure. Yeah. Well, you spent all of last year. Okay, so this is actually benefits of wisdom, right? Pay attention, watch things for a while before you start doing stuff. So Vicky spent all of last year observing everything that was going on her property, and this year she's working on building infrastructure. And yeah, it's a lot of big equipment that you got to get. So you have to know what you're going to do before you shell out the money for that stuff. You're paying for it every day that you got it. At least one pond and at least one greenhouse. Nice, nice. He's saying it's either going to be a Wallapini, a Chinese greenhouse, or preferably both. Yeah. Well, that earth sheltering on the backside, open on the south. You get the benefit of the sun all day long, and then add extra ventilation or geothermal heating and cooling to it if you can. That would be great. But just good refraction index materials being used with earth sheltering on the backside will at least bump you up a couple of zones. Oh, Iris is here. And by the way, that reminds me. Sorry, Iris. I forgot. I need to remind you guys that we've gotten started in the growing season. A lot of people, it's far enough along now that you can be getting seeds in the ground and getting plants growing. And so far, I have not seen a lot of videos with the people that would like to win the $100 Amazon gift card for planting the most sunflowers. Now, the way you win that is by taking a video where you plant the sunflowers. Make a video. It doesn't have to be great quality. You can shoot it on your cell phone and just upload that and send me the link so that I can see it and verify that, yes, you have planted sunflowers. And then the other half is at the end of the season when it comes time to gather your sunflowers. You gather the stalks and all, just like you would if you were using them for bioremediation to remove radiation from the soil. That's the kind of the theory is like, well, I want to see the country covered in sunflowers so that hopefully maybe somebody will look out the window and go, hey, why are all the sunflowers out here? And it's because the American people are kind of worried that you're going to get us involved in some trouble that you can't take back. That's why. And maybe that gets through and people go, oh, maybe we shouldn't, agitate so much. In any case, the second half, of course, is show a video where you gather the stalks as if you were going to go ahead and take them to one central location for disposal. And whoever has the most sunflower stalks gathered, sunflowers, at the end of that time period will win $100 in Amazon stuff, a $100 gift card for Amazon. So far, the only person that I know of that has a video showing the planting of sunflowers is Iris. They're at Moon Sprouts. She didn't send me the link, but I saw it anyway. All righty. Maybe he's taking down the polytunnel. I'll tell you what, keeping a polytunnel here in Oklahoma is rough. It's hard because of, we have so much extreme weather, hail particularly, that'll shred that plastic. All it needs is one incident and it's gone. Like, having a regular greenhouse with rigid sides, I think, is the way to go out here because otherwise you just run the risk of eventually losing it. The cat meows are throwing. We got Mr. Ezra Kitty, who finally earlier today came up and gave me the head nudge. So he's gotten used to me now. He's a huge scaredy cat. He's like 17 and a half pounds of American short hair, and he's just scared of everything. It's funny. Sunflowers coming up everywhere. Huh? I love that. We've got them coming up all over the place too. Well, mainly because anytime I've got a place where I haven't decided what I want to plant there, or I haven't planted anything there, I've got that 50-pound bag of sunflowers. I throw a handful down there and they'll grow. But I'm seeing them along the path from where a bird will go to the feeder and then where it goes to stash it, particularly chickadees and the titmice. They like to grab seeds and then fly to their nest and stash the seeds in their nest, but they don't always make it. Sometimes they drop them. And so we'll have just a line of sunflowers heading off in the direction of wherever the nest is. There's a tree back there in the corner with hollow cavities in it that I know they're nesting in. And speaking of which, yeah, this is great. If I can, I'll get the camera out there and get some footage of the guys. I don't know. I might be able to get up on a ladder and get an angled shot where you can see them in the nest. But we've got a family of cardinals that's nesting in the Bartlett pear tree right out here by the road. So that Bartlett pear tree that I gathered all the pears from to make the cider with this past year, they're nesting in that tree. I was walking out by it and I heard the peeping noises and I said, "Wait a minute, that's coming from inside that tree there." And I looked and there was a little juvenile cardinal sitting there on the top of the nest, and he took off in a huff because he'd been found out. I was like, aha, you guys are hanging out there. And that's great news because now I've got this entire family of birds working on killing off bugs for me and hunting grasshoppers and other stuff. So that's at least one full quadrant of the property taken care of with that particular nest. Yay! So hopefully I get more in other places. All right. Looking for someone to share a mistake that they've made. There we go. Okay. There's one. Tilling and then not thoroughly weeding out the beds. So you wind up, yeah, we had to go through and do some extra weeding. And I think I have chiggers on my elbow. Some extra weeding in one of our allium beds, the raised beds that we had, because I just brought that soil over and it was pretty much just had whatever seeds were in it. And so now it has all kinds of grass and other things popping up. So we had to go through there and weed those. And of course, yeah, if you don't get it weeded out the first time around or re-till it afterwards, you can do that. If you are doing tilling, till it once, let everything germinate and come up, and then come through and hit it again, and hopefully 2 or 3 times through that, depending upon how extensive your seed bank is what it will take to get everything knocked down. However, more and more, I'm beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, what I want to do is not destroy my weeds, but instead cut them back and use them as biomass producers to enrich the soil. Other than those spots that are immediately around the root zone of something I'm specifically growing. So if I've got something growing, right here, here's something I'm growing. We've got weeds all around it, and I know it's going to have a root zone about like this. So maybe what I want to do is come in and I pull up everything all around there, and I lay it down as mulch right here. I pulled up the weeds there. Everything gets pulled up. And then it gets laid down as mulch. I now have basically the drip zone of that plant here. And that we still have all the weeds. They're all out here. And they're doing their job. They're holding the soil down. They're capturing any excess fertility that happens to come their way. And they're putting it into their structure. So periodically, I can take my sickle and I can come through and I can cut those. Not pull them out, but just cut them. And also drop those down to, once again, fertilize the thing that I'm growing. And I can make use of the weeds. And they become a resource instead of a problem. That's a thought. Of course, this depends upon what you're growing. If you're trying to grow a field full of wheat, you can't do this. It doesn't work with wheat. It works with things like tomatoes. Yep. Hey, I didn't know about that about cleavers. Well, they're high in calcium. I didn't know they're high in vitamin C. Mary's plotting to dig up weeds in the morning. Are you plotting to dig up weeds here or where you're at? Oh, you're up there at the yard, so you're going to be getting some of the interesting weeds that they have out there. All right, here we go. Yeah, blackberry tea is supposed to be pretty good for you too. Strawberry leaf tea is pretty good as well. Yeah. All right, so second mistake I was going to talk about. All right, I may have mentioned this one before, but it bears repeating because it can be a very expensive mistake if you make this one. Ordinarily, whenever you're getting new trees and say your woody perennials, whenever you're getting them, you want to get them during their dormant period. So in the fall, in the winter, whenever the sap is down in the roots and they're not trying to grow. While they're dormant, you can take them and put them in a new location so that whenever they wake up in the spring, they just go, oh, I guess I'm supposed to be growing here now, and they can take off and they can grow. They don't suffer shock. But this is not true for evergreens. We got a Yopon holly tree. Actually, we got 2 Yopon holly trees, along with an order that we got during the dormant period for other things, which are, I think, some hazelnut trees. And the company that we ordered from assumed that we knew what we were doing whenever we ordered these. And they went ahead and they shipped them. It was the middle of the winter. And I discovered a little bit late that evergreens don't like being transplanted in the middle of winter. Finally, this past year, partially due to the drought conditions and partially due to the excavation of the front yard, where they inverted our soil layers and put the clay substrate now on the top, and just tore up the roots of a lot of things. We lost one of the pear trees, and the Yopon holly, the one that we had that was hanging on, finally expired. But our lesson we learned here. Oh, 2 hazelnut trees also died over there. So we had 1 pear tree, 2 hazelnuts, and a Yopon holly. And another gummy bush. So 5 trees died as a result of that little adventure. I wouldn't necessarily call that an error on my part. It's just, calculated risk. Someday the city is going to want to come through and play with their water lines, and if you've got stuff planted nearby, it might damage them. It just turned out to be bad timing. But mainly with the Yopon holly, the big error was getting the thing in the middle of the winter and trying to treat it like a deciduous tree. So I'll leave you with that one. If you're planning on getting evergreens, try to get them. If you have a long, cool season in the fall, get them at the beginning of the cool season and allow them to get established and get the roots going. If you have a better chance at having a long, cool season in the spring, wait until your frost danger is past and then get your evergreens in and plant them. But once again, you don't want to do it in the middle of summer either. Once the heat hits, it's going to stress them too. Sunflowers fighting with plantain. That's nice. We had to get some plantain. Mary's been bringing back buckets full of this stuff. I now have 1 entire tub filled with plantain plants. I think that's enough for right now, Mary. Otherwise, I'm going to have to prepare another planting area, and I still have to figure out what I'm going to do with regards to that maple tree over there. First off, I have to figure out what kind of maple tree it is. I don't think it's a sugar maple. It's a pretty ordinary maple tree. I mean, it's a maple. I'm not sure which variety it is, but it does produce a lot of babies every year. And it seems a shame to just tear them up out of the ground and treat them like weeds and throw them away. I'm sure somebody would love to have maple trees. So I'm planning on salvaging some and propagating them. Who knows? $15 a tree, maybe. Sounds good. I'm thinking about lowering the costs on some things. Some of the more common trees, like red buds, are very easy for us to come by. I have dozens that are started in the ground right now. We'll probably get them out and into the pools by the end of this year, and whenever they go dormant. And then we'll start off with the ones that we already have growing that we're tending in the pools that we'll start shipping when they go dormant in the fall. And I'm thinking about lowering the price on those to 15. I don't know if I'm going to have mulberries for sale this year. Right now, I've got like 5 of the Morris rubra, the really nice sweet red that I've managed to get cloned. I'm thinking about planting those out for myself, and maybe you can have some next year, because they are really tasty, and I want to have a lot of those for mulch for our allium beds, because I want to grow a lot more onions and garlic. Carolyn says, I planted sunflowers and they didn't come up. Oh no. You can try again. Oh, of course, you guys you're down in Florida. I don't know what you do for growing sunflowers in Florida. It may be too late in the season by now. Who knows? Fortunately, the seeds are cheap. You just keep on throwing handfuls until something takes. Mary's been tossing seeds too. Lots of them. Cold frames. I may do some stuff with cold frames before too awful long. I was thinking about setting up some areas in the backyard that the ducks will be patrolling on a regular basis, where I can have large plantings of daylily or canna lily. And I'm thinking daylily, actually. And the reason I'm thinking daylily is because it's pretty easy to get them to put on sprouts and shoots, even whenever it's cooler out. And a cold frame put over them would certainly encourage them to send up shoots. If they start sending up shoots and I remove the cold frame and allow the ducks to come in, those shoots, whenever they come up, are very high in protein. That's a protein source, and I know the ducks will eat them. So planting lots of daylilies, like just treating them like they were grass, and planting an area up with just a solid patch of daylily, and then being able to move a cold frame over it, and progressively move cold frames down that row and allow the ducks to come up and graze, and then we move them over to the next spot and let them come up and graze, and we move over to the next spot. That may be a way I could make sure that I am feeding a high protein feed to my poultry, even during the winter, and I may not have to worry about getting a supply of pelletized duck feed from somewhere if I do that. It's just a thought. I might be able to work that into a fodder system. Okay, let me throw out another mistake that I made. Another mistake that I made, and this of course pertains to the ducks and poultry. I thought that I might be able to get away with feeding them alfalfa pellets because they do like eating clover, and I figured if they like to eat one, nitrogen-rich fodder plant, then maybe they'd like to eat another one. I think they would like to eat the alfalfa. I think I've seen them nibbling on this stuff whenever they encounter it. But I bought a big bag of pellets and started mixing that in with their feed. It's like, I'm just going to mix in, I'll have 3 scoops of feed go out to them a day. I'll have 2 scoops of the duck meal pellets and 1 scoop of alfalfa pellets. And we'll put that out there. and let them have some of the alfalfa. And maybe that means I can give them more alfalfa and less ductose because they're not babies anymore. And alfalfa is cheaper. But they picked around it. They didn't want to eat it. They wouldn't touch it. They flat out refused to eat the alfalfa pellets. I don't know what it is about it that they didn't like. They just didn't like it. So, lesson learned. Can't feed alfalfa pellets to everything. Let's see. Ooh, flies. Must be that time of year. Oops is definitely common around here. Yeah. Oh, I constantly make errors. Hopefully I learn from them. And sometimes if I remember to tell you guys about it, then you can avoid making the same mistake, right? Let's see. Another mistake that I made not too long ago was with our nixtamalization. First time around, the very first time around, I used Mexicali lime, the stuff that is made from cooking down limestone. And I read the directions. I'm pretty sure I read the directions, but there must be some difference in the quality of the lime that we got and the quality of the lime that whoever it was that wrote those directions had, because I wound up burning my mouth on that stuff. I got it done. It made a really nice hominy. And then whenever I rinsed it and flushed it, and rinsed it and flushed it, and rinsed it and flushed it, I did not check the pH. And I just went ahead, put it in a bowl, put some butter on it, and took a bite. And the first bite, it was like, oh, it's hominy. It's good. Yeah. Chew, swallow. Great. Second bite, I got started. And then I realized it was burning the side of my cheek. And I was on camera. So, and I wound up editing that part of the video out. And this was my first attempt to do nixtamalization. And I was using field corn, just deer feeder field corn. Question being is that something that you can stock up on and use in an emergency? Yeah, it's cheap, but probably be better off growing your own. Just, I'll put it this way: it was not the best hominy I've ever had, aside from burning my mouth. I mean, the first bite was pretty bland, pretty ordinary. It's just hominy, not great. Second time nixtamalizing, second time. Pretty much the same error, really, to be honest. I underestimated the potency of that the alkaline lye. It's not really lye. It's calcium carbonate. It's calcium carbonate? Calcium oxide. Sorry, calcium oxide that you get from bleaching hardwood ash. I very, very much underestimated how alkaline it was going to wind up being. And I didn't burn my mouth, but I wound up with some tangy tortillas. Put it that way. They were a bit more tangy than they should have been. So once again, it's like learn from your mistakes. Don't use quite as much either lime or wood ash as you think you're going to need. And sometimes the directions that you see on the internet are copied and pasted and not actually practiced by whoever is sharing this information with you. So just exercise some caution, do a little experimentation. If you're planning on making the big dinner, try making it once before the pressure's on with your internet directions, because you might learn a few things, and you don't want to have those lessons whenever you've got company over. All right. Everybody's talking about cleavers here. Guys, cleavers. This is Gallium aperine. Square stems, little tiny little tiny spines on it. They're not, I guess they are kind of sharp. They're not incredibly injurious, but they will scratch. Like you'll have little tiny micro abrasions on your skin that leaves you feeling a little itchy after you've been handling them for a while. The leaves come out. They're very long, pin-like leaves that come out in a radius around that square stem. And whenever they produce their seeds are little tiny fuzzy things, little tiny fuzzy brown things, about somewhat smaller than a BB shot. And these fuzzy little seeds will stick to everything, and that's how they get spread around. But they do a good job at accumulating calcium. I can feed them to the poultry early on in the spring, and that extra calcium will produce lots of good, sturdy eggshells. And every piece of wildlife that wanders across the property brings them in from outside. So even if I pull up every single one that I find and feed it to the ducks, I will have more next year. I don't even have to worry about it. They're going to get seeded. I'm going to have plenty because the wildlife will bring them in. But yeah, it's a plant that has a lot of different uses. It's been used to stuff mattresses with as bed straw. Presumably, those little tiny hooks that it has impede certain insects that like to inhabit bedding, and stops them from being as much of a problem as they could be. Kind of like bean leaves, I suppose. They've been used. The cleavers have been used as a filter medium for filtering milk. So you have a backwoods milking operation. You got your goat or your cow or whatever, and instead of having that cloth that you put over your bucket, if you didn't have one, they have actually used a mat of gallium or cleavers to be there to capture stuff to keep it from getting down into the milk. I think I'd rather have the cloth personally. Some, not the gallium apiary, but some form of bed straw, some forms of gallium have been used to cause milk to curdle. So it's a substitute for rennet. I've attempted it with the gallium apiarine and discovered that no, it does not make milk curdle. So it's not that particular one. I'm thinking the one they're talking about might be closer related to an artesima. All right. All right. So the question is, was that an error or is that just they're everywhere? It's cool. I used to allow all of our lambs quarter whenever we had it. Every year, whenever it came up, I would make sure that I did not mow it, didn't cut it, didn't do anything to it, just let it go to seed. Because whenever I was a kid, I grew up eating the stuff. I'd snack on it when I was out in the garden all the time. I couldn't get away with snacking on the peas off the pea plant if they weren't quite ripe and ready to pick you. I'd get scolded for that. Even though they're really good, they're sweet. They're immature. You pop the pod open, and they're little things. They're just like little tiny bursts of sweetness, and then you're likely to get a whooping because you're gobbling up all the peas right before they're even ripe. But you can get away with snacking on lamb's quarters. So I developed a fondness for this stuff. And of course, we cook with it. That and dock and quite a few other things that are weeds. Just they're free vegetables. I didn't have to plant them. They're vegetables that I did not have to plant. Cleavers is gallium apiarine. Gallium. Some people call it stick tights. There's all different kinds of names for it. Here's Lori's World checking in. She's making dinner. Yeah. Sassafras talking about tilling and then didn't pull the weeds. No more tilling after this. Well, sometimes you do have to get in there and break up the substrate in the first place. Otherwise, you're just asking a lot of your plants to do all the work. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. It really depends upon what you've got. The clay bank that we have right over here on this side of us, it can get so hard that there's no way anything's getting through it. I've come along And some of the trees that we planted over there that didn't make it. Whenever I went to go look at them, I saw that even though they hadn't been root bound whenever we got them, or they were very, very scarcely root bound whenever we got them, after I dug out the area that they went into, that was the only place where the soil had been loosened, and they got out to the edges, and then they started circling like they were in a pot because the clay was that hard. So, yay! We're treating that with putting the garden fork in about every foot or so, and putting breaks into it on about a 1 foot basis down to about another foot or so, and then lots and lots of cover crop action, lots of daikon radish, sugar beets, stuff like that. Hopefully, we can modify our clay and add enough organic matter to it that it'll start being good for something other than making plates. So I think it probably would make a fairly good pottery. All right. Let me say, Mary's collecting plants today, or I guess tomorrow in Waterloo, Iowa. All right, bye, Iris. Be good. Be good at it. One of the two. Okay, she's getting some more of that wild mint and some more Plantago Major. So I am probably going to need to set up another planting bed. That's okay. I wanted to propagate some more strawberries anyway. So I got a couple extra bags of dirt that I can throw out there. We've got a couple more of those $9.99 dog bathing tubs. Mary says she looked at the dollar store and found, I think it was for $12, but they were smaller. So they're even smaller than the ones that we're getting for $9.99 at the outlets. So shoot, I guess we'll just keep on using the dog tubs because they're good and deep. I can fit 12 sandbags into them. And as you know, I use the sandbags just like a cloth bag to put trees in. And I can put them in those tubs, and they can sub-irrigate, and they can grow in those tubs just fine. But I can also use those same tubs to grow things like strawberries and violets and stuff like that. So there we go. Let's see, what's another mistake? Oh shoot, here's a very, very old one. Do you guys remember my first year doing the gardening channel thing? The very first year. So I had made an assumption about our frost dates. I was putting a little bit too much faith in the Farmer's Almanac. And I wound up losing. Well, I didn't lose, but I set back all of our tomatoes and pepper plants that I had started. I put those out there, and they all got frost killed all the way down to the ground. And I thought, well, great, we lost everything. And of course, I had of course gone out there and said, okay, I'm going to build this monster trellis for tomatoes. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest trellis. I'm going to build a trellis. Nobody has seen a trellis like this before. So we set this big trellis up, and I was all ready for it. It's like, okay, these tomatoes are going to be up there 10 foot up in the air. And of course, they get killed back down to the roots. And so all the spring growing season comes, and they're struggling to come up. And they barely come up. And the peppers barely come up. And I interplanted them, so I had a tomato plant, and then I come over a foot, the pepper plant, and then I put a borage in there, and then the tomato, and then so on and so forth. So we were mixing it up down the road. and the tomatoes are just barely coming up. So I've got this 10-foot high trellis for these tomatoes to grow up, and they're getting maybe 3-4 foot. And that's all they got. So I was like, wah, 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 wah. So I guess the lesson there is mind your hubris. Sometimes things don't work out the way you plan. And whenever your wife calls you up in the evening and says, hey, there's going to be a frost coming, cover up your plants, don't just go, man, it'll be fine, and go back to sleep, because that's what I did. Listen to your wives, gentlemen. Listen to your wives. Or at least develop the ability to go, convincingly. But yes, Mary was right. I was wrong. I should have covered everything. Fortunately, it gave me a great opportunity to learn about mycorrhizal inoculant and what it can do for you, because I had inoculated all of those aforementioned plants before we set them out. And as a result, they all recovered, even though they did get killed back down to the ground. So the ability of that that support that they got from the fungi was tremendous, and they probably would not have recovered at all without it. Now imagine how much better it would have been if I hadn't killed them. Oh, so much better. All right. Amy's got a kiddo feeling yucky tonight. Oh no. Mary says our maple tree is a stupid maple. That's the variety. It's a stupid maple. I think Margaret called it a silver maple. She may be correct. I don't know. I'll have to look. See if I can figure out specifically which type of maple tree it is. But John saying maple trees are everywhere here. Get birdseed has a lot of them. Could be. I don't know. Yeah, we have seeds coming down all the time from this tree, and there's tons of little maple trees popping up. Hey, there you go. Yeah, if you got a dozen of them, there's a chance that you might actually get a few berries without the birds eating them all. I said a chance. You pretty much have to go out there every day and go, okay, let's walk around the bush. Okay, we've got we could. Let's walk on the next one. Like once in the morning, once in the evening, and you might be able to get some berries before the birds get them, because the birds are all over them. They love them. And I told them, hey, look, we've got the ones over there that are they're up high where I can't reach. You're welcome to eat all of those. I can't eat them anyway. I can't get to them. Leave my bushes alone. These are mine. Mine, I tell you. Birds don't care. They like mulberries too. Vicky's saying, Peaceful Heritage Nursery has a selection of Morris Rhubarb that is supposed to be a superior selection with fruits nearly 1.5 inches long and superb flavor. Now, these ones are about maybe 1 to 1 1/4, and they are really good whenever they're sweet, or whenever they're all the way ripe. See, this is a good one. This is a good one to learn from. And I found this also. The closer you can get to your own growing zone, for whenever you're getting either perennials, trees, shrubs, perennials, or even seeds, the closer you can get to your own zone, the better off you are. I don't know if we're going to have any of the punka butternut squash that I planted this year or not. I planted a whole bunch of different cucurbits, and I forgot which ones I planted where, which is pretty much par for the course for me. Run around with seeds and go, okay, some here. Have I put anything here yet? No, I haven't. Okay, let's put something here. I planted crickneck squash. I planted straight yellow squash. I planted Seminole pumpkin, and I planted Ponca butternut squash, which is a Waltham bred to have very, very short vines. But it was produced in Connecticut from any seed company in Connecticut, which, as far as I know, they're perfectly fine. I have other seeds that I got from them that have done very well. But the Ponca strain of butternut that they bred, I think, wants to grow in Connecticut because it did not seem to adapt very well in the first couple of years I tried it, and I still had some seeds left, so I'm trying again this year. I think I have a couple coming up. We'll find out if they grow. If they do, then great. Maybe I'll be able to save some of that seed and keep that short vine tendency going. I kind of like the idea of having a shorter vine on a butternut squash, simply because they want to take over everything. And I love butternut. It's just the taking over everything could be an issue. In any case, saying lost 2 pecans from Georgia, and the one from Stark is doing great. Yeah, just depends. You know, if the tree is not used to growing where you're at, it can be a shock for it to grow. I got a eucalyptus. What was it, last year that I tried to get started, and it was I think One Green World had imported it. They had imported it from Australia, and it was not ready to grow in Oklahoma. I think what I should have done with it is set it up in an indoor area, put lots of light on it, and sort of babied it through a season, and then got it going in the spring of the next season. Because I don't think it was. I think it was trying to go dormant at the time that it was time to get growing, and as a result, it didn't make it. You're like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed now. No, it's time for you to get going, because it's going to be hot in a minute, and it didn't pull through. I may try again sometime in the future. Hey, was that another error? Yeah, okay. I discovered that I have a hard time growing snow gum or eucalyptus here in 7A. Theoretically, it can grow here, but sometimes in Oklahoma, it's just you aren't going to know if you can grow it until you try, and what you can grow will surprise you. Ken's in the house. Hi, Ken. Joe's in the house too. Better late than never. Yep. See up there, no water. Let's see. Going to buy from Stark, but they were out. Oh no. Well, sometimes there are. It's a little bit late to order anything right now. We got a couple of swamp milkweed from I think it was American Meadows, and they arrived like just right at the end of the last bit of cool weather that we've had. And they arrived, and they were in the mailbox, and I've been wondering what in the world I'm going to do about this, because I ship plants through the mail, and our larger boxes, the ones that I bought just a big bulk 2 sleeves of larger boxes, which are fine for the bulk orders of daylilies, for example. Or if you have multiple things that are in the same order that aren't trees have to be shipped with a different packing material. And trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to make that somewhat affordable. The little saplings I could probably get away with like $1.50 for the box, and then but the larger ones, if I'm going to sell the larger ones, are about $2.50 for a box that they'll fit in. And it's either that or I have to prune them way back to ship them. But about the 3 foot boxes, we have 3 foot by 3 inch, and we have 3 foot by 5 inch. 3 foot by 5 inch, I've got a couple of locust trees that will probably ship in that, and then maybe a couple of red buds also would ship in a box that size. But every little bit of this stuff that I'm talking about, it's all extra expense when it comes time to start shipping something, right? And if I can't get the cost down low enough, then I can't be competitive with everybody else. It's a horrible thing, but anyway. Our boxes that I got, the 2 sleeves of them, are big enough that they will not fit in a mailbox unless you get a big mailbox. So the mail carrier would have to bring them up to the house and leave them at the house. There were a couple of times that I shipped using the soft packages because there's flat rate shipping. It was like $8 for the soft pack, and it would ship anywhere for $8, which is good because I charge $10 for shipping flat. That's it, no more. And whenever there's extra shipping costs, I have to make it up out of my pocket. Seeds, if it's nothing but seeds, I can ship them in a padded envelope, and it's a lot less expensive. And if that's the case, what I wound up doing is, if I remember to do it, I try to refund $5 back off the shipping costs if that's all you got with seeds, because we do have $10 automatic flat shipping, and it doesn't cost that much to ship seeds. So, yeah. At the same time, I don't know how I'd set it up. I'm not getting good at setting up websites. Interesting. Yeah, you can buy those soup bean or soup pea mixes and plant the seeds out of them. Sometimes, not always. How well would field peas work for soup peas? We're talking about like cow peas or things like the Lincoln. You got enough clay to build a temple. Hey. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let me answer this one. Not that I can tell. Not that I can tell. I've been looking for anything that looks like it might be a vining leguminous plant coming out of the area where I put those, and I have not seen anything. So that may be a wash. All right, so you're doing green field peas. Okay, yeah. Don't do the Alaskan early if you want to use them for a soup pea. They're good for a sweet pea. They're not really great for a soup pea. You might have to put them in a grinder and crack them, and then make them into a mush. Actually, thick pea soup is pretty freaking good. There we go. There's field peas from Azure Standard. They're called animal feed, but they grew well for a cover crop and a fodder crop, and they tasted pretty good too. There you go. It's nice to have things that can fill multiple roles for you. Let's see. They're bird magnets. They're also squirrel magnets, which if you think of squirrels as being taco meat, is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think of squirrels as being taco meat. So I've got mulberry trees growing right next to where I'm trying to grow my garlic. Of course, garlic is seasoning for taco meat. Yeah. Amy's got mulberries. They're coming up. They're all volunteers. You have to keep your eyes on them as they mature, because mulberries come in both male and female, and you don't get the same flowers on the same tree. So some of them are going to produce fruit, and some of them are not going to produce fruit. And it'll probably be about a 50-50 ratio. We have at least 2 mulberry trees that I'm keeping an eye on because I have never seen fruit coming from them, and I don't know if that's because they're males or it's just because they're not old enough. But they're both in odd corners that I stumbled across and went, oh, well, that's a mulberry tree. I think we'll save that one, see what it turns into. There's one. Everything grew and I had no idea what was where. All right. Yeah, the cover crop mix that I put together, I erred on putting too much buckwheat into it because now I'm having to go around and thin the buckwheat. There's just too much buckwheat. I planned on thinning the daikon radishes. Oh, I've got the dehydrator going. I went ahead and thinned a bunch of them earlier today, chopped them all up, threw them in the dehydrator. We're going to dry them up, grind them up, and turn them into soup base. That's the plan. Lots and lots and lots of daikons. So periodically we'll go along, um, thin them out, leave a few, pick a few, eat a few, and preserve a few. That's the idea. And shoot, about now, right at this point, whenever I pull up one daikon radish, that is an entire meal by itself. Well, I'd throw in an egg or two to finish it off if I want a little extra protein. But really, the last time I ate it, I just chopped it up, sautéed it, a little bit of onion, threw it on a corn tortilla, and just munched that down, and that was enough. I didn't bother putting eggs on it. That's the problem with eucalyptus everywhere. I mean, in Australia, they have issues with eucalyptus because it's a fire tree, right? It likes to spread its seeds whenever there's fire. It's a very resinous tree. Whenever it gets dry, it's a tinderbox. So you don't want them to become invasive anywhere. That's a bad idea. If you're gonna get them, get one and stay on top of it and make sure it doesn't spread. But if you've got one, then you have a source of eucalyptol, and the eucalyptol is a very good antiseptic. Yep. Let me see. I have not tried velvet beans yet. I am growing these though this year. These little scarlet runner beans. I planted a bunch. Shockingly few seeds. Shockingly few in these packages. This was almost $2, and it's got maybe 8 or 9 seeds in it. So these are pricey. If I get lots and lots of beans, I will sell them a lot cheaper than that. I'll get you more beans. I'll get you more beans for $2. By golly. Let's see. Kay's here. Better late than never. Yeah. The soup peas, if they're split, you're not going to be able to grow any. All right. Good night, Sean. All right. Vicky's asked me if I plan on letting daikon go to seed. Yes, I'm going to let a lot of daikon go to seed. I'm going to let enough go to seed that I have enough to do it all over again next year. And I want to try harvesting some of the seed pods and see how those are. I've heard they're pretty good, and I might try pickling them or something like that. Yeah, they really are. Just they set up shoots with bunches of brilliant crimson flowers, and then they make the beans, and the beans are pretty looking too, and they're large. Presumably, you have to cook them quite well, otherwise they're likely to cause gastrointestinal discomfort. But other than that, like a whole bunch of other ones. Ooh, hello. Hi. Who are you? I've got an insect that's inside, and I'm gonna just see if I can turn him around and get him on camera. Do you have a rostrum? Do I see a rostrum? You have a rostrum. Okay. All right. So, guys, do you see this bug right here? You see that bug? All right. So there are some leaf-footed bugs that do look a little bit like this, but this one is not a leaf foot. This one is an assassin beetle. He's got what's called a rostrum right there at his front. He's got a little proboscis they can use to stick into his prey. That is a predator. That is a predator bug that decided to come in for some reason. All right. I'm going to just put you down here and let you hunt. Probably going to go after the German cockroaches that have decided to multiply. Probably somewhat related to Mary leaving her bowl on her desk. There's one trying to look over the computer. All right. So anyway, there we go, guys. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night because it's getting late and I need to go and put the ducks away. I'm going to read this here. Planted the scarlet beans in a customer's yard last year. They kind of got wild in their formal called it. I called it the wild corner. She hated them. Yeah, I suppose if they're growing wild and she wanted something careful and manicured and neat, probably wouldn't like the way I garden because I let things just go. All right. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. If you're watching this on a replay, don't forget, plant sunflowers, shoot a recording of it, send me the link so I can see that recording, and you will be entered into the contest to win $100 in Amazon credit, a $100 gift card from Amazon. Vicky says assassin bugs are well named. Yeah, they creep up on other insects and they hit them with that rostrum and kill them and suck the juices right out of them. They're heavy duty insect predators. Yep. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Put the ducks up. Check on our frogs. Somebody's out there trying to make use of the pool. I can hear. So as always, I hope you found the video informative or entertaining. If you did, you know what to do. I will catch you next time. And until then, guys, get out there and get growing. And I will catch you next time.